Today I will be reading Tiddalick the Greedy Frog. Tiddalick the Greedy Frog, an Aboriginal Dreamtime story, retold by Nicholas Wu and illustrated by Nina Rycroft. The Aboriginal people of Australia tell stories about a mystical time known as Dreamtime. These stories help them remember old ways and explain mysterious events. They tell of ancient spirits that came to Earth. These spirits created plants, animals, and landmarks. The tale of Tiddalick is one of these old stories. It is treasured by people around the world. Once there were no mountains, no rivers, no animals, and no people. There was no sun, no rain, and no wind. There was only darkness. Then the dream time came to be, and wonderful things began to happen. The rainbow serpent came down from the sky and slithered across the earth. Mountains rose and valleys appeared. Rivers flowed, and the earth was slowly covered with trees, plants, and flowers. Animals appeared as if they had been blown in by the wind. In those days, when the earth was green and beautiful, there lived a giant frog named Tiddalick. Can you see him? He was bigger than the rocks. He was bigger than the trees. He was even bigger than the mountains. When Tiddalick was happy, everything was calm and peaceful. When he was grumpy, the earth would tremble, rocks would fall, and winds would rage. What makes you grumpy? One morning, Tiddalick woke up in a very grumpy, greedy mood. He was so grumpy and greedy that when he went down to the lake to drink, he drank and drank until he had drunk all the water in the lake. Then he went down to the river. He drank and drank until he had drunk all the water in the river. Tiddalick was so greedy that he kept drinking night and day. He drank all the water from the lakes and streams. The greedy frog drank so much that there wasn't a drop of water left in the whole world. Tiddalick was so full he could hardly move. All he could do was lie down, close his great yellow eyes, and go to sleep. Can you see the water going into Tiddalick's mouth? The land dried out and cracked. The rivers turned to dust. The trees lost their leaves. The flowers did not bloom, and animals began to die. Nothing moved, and there was no sound. There was no rain. The land suffered from a terrible drought. The animals cried, "We have nothing to drink. We have nothing to eat. There is no rain and no water. What can we do?" Wise old Wombat said, "We need to talk with Tiddalick. We can ask him to give us back our water." So one by one the animals went to Tiddalick. The animals argued about who should approach him first. Kangaroo was bravest. He said, "I will speak with him." "Tiddalick," he cried, "I am the jumping kangaroo. I cannot jump any more because I am so weak. All I can do is lie in the dust of the dry riverbed. Please give us back our water." The dingo said, "I am the wild dog who barks and howls in the night. I cannot bark and howl any more because I am so weak. All I can do is lie in the dust of the dry riverbed. Please give us back our water." Kookaburra came next. He said, "I am the bird who laughs in the trees. I cannot laugh any more because I am so weak. All I can do is perch on a branch of a dead tree. Please give us back our water." Then Cockatoo squawked loudly, I am the bird with the brilliant white feathers and bright yellow crest. I am very, very weak. My beautiful yellow crest is growing pale. Please give us back our water." Tiddalick did not stir. He didn't even open one of his big yellow eyes. It seemed that the greedy, grumpy frog would be the only one to survive. The animals were about to give up. It seemed they would die in the dust. But then they heard a small voice say, "I have an idea." The animals looked around. There was little Bandicoot, flapping his big rat ears. "If we could make Tiddalick laugh, I'm sure the water would flow from his mouth." Bandicoot squeaked. "Maybe if we can tickle him. Let's find a branch." So the animals struggled to their feet, and they gathered around the giant frog to see if they could make him laugh. First they tried tickling him, but Tiddalick didn't seem impressed. Kookaburra told some of his funny stories. Everyone laughed and laughed, but Tiddalick didn't. He didn't even blink. Next, Kangaroo and Emu jumped up and down and around and around. Everyone laughed and laughed, but Tiddalick didn't. He didn't even open one eye. Lizard came down from a tree. He opened his frill and showed the animals his bright orange and red scales. Then he ran around and around on his hind legs. Everyone laughed and laughed, but Tiddalick didn't. He didn't even stir. "Come on, Tiddalick, laugh, you big squelchy frog. If you could see yourself, you would laugh until you cried," the animals said. But all seemed lost. The animals were sure they were doomed. Tiddalick would never laugh, and they would never have water again. As the animals gathered for the last time, they heard a strange tiny voice calling, "Let me try to make him laugh." It was Eel, who had slithered up from a dry billabong. He began to dance. First he moved slowly, but soon he danced faster and faster. He wriggled, twisted, and turned himself into strange shapes. Then he jumped onto Tiddalick's tummy, spinning around like a tornado. Tiddalick began to shiver. Tiddalick began to quiver. Tiddalick began to giggle. Tiddalick's giggle became a gurgle. Tiddalick's gurgle became louder and louder until the earth trembled. Then, all of a sudden, he began to laugh. The animals ran for shelter as water gushed out of his mouth like a huge waterfall. Tiddalick laughed until every drop of water was out of his stomach. Can you see the water coming out of his mouth? The water filled the lakes, the ponds, the billabongs, and the swamps. It filled the waterholes and the rivers. New life came to earth. The whole world woke as if from a deep sleep. Trees grew and flowers bloomed. Animals wandered through the grasses. Birds flitted from tree to tree. Slowly, the earth became beautiful again, and Tiddalick became just a little frog. And to this day, the Aboriginal people of Australia know that when they see little frogs filling themselves up with water and burying themselves in the ground, there will soon be a drought. Can you see all the colours? The trees and the water and the animals? Why don't you try this activity? What animals were shown throughout the story? Can you remember? Have you seen any of these Australian animals before? Can you remember what made Tiddalick finally laugh? And last of all, what makes you laugh?